There is a tradition inside the wealthiest families in the world, families whose names are carved into the sides of universities, hospitals, and museums that almost nobody outside those circles ever talks about. It's not about the mansions. It's not about the private schools or the ski trips to Gstaad. It's about something those families do with their children before those children are 10 years old. Something that, on the surface, looks like generosity. But underneath, it is one of the most calculated, strategic, and powerful moves in the entire playbook of generational wealth. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what it is, why old money families have done it for over a century, and, most importantly, how you can start doing it with your own family, even if you didn't grow up with a trust fund. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, the way you think about money, charity, and how the wealthy really operate is never going to be the same. First, let's make sure we're on the same page about what old money actually means, because people misuse this term constantly. Old money does not mean rich. There are plenty of rich people with no old money at all. Old money refers to families who have held significant, multi-generational wealth. Wealth that has survived not just one generation, but 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 or more. Families like the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the DuPonts, the Mellons. In Europe, it's the old aristocratic lines. In Asia, the ancient merchant dynasties. What separates old money from new money isn't the amount in the account. It's the culture around the money. New money, the kind built by entrepreneurs, entertainers, athletes, tends to be loud. It celebrates itself. It buys visibility. Ferraris, penthouses, Instagram moments. And there's nothing wrong with that. But new money often fails to survive past the generation that built it. There's a famous saying, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The first generation builds it, the second maintains it, the third loses it. Old money families know this, and they've spent centuries engineering cultural practices specifically designed to prevent it. The charity tradition is one of their most powerful tools, and it starts earlier than you'd ever expect. Here is what actually happens in these households. Long before a child turns 10, often as young as 5 or 6 years old, they are sat down at the family table and handed a sum of money. And they are told something that sounds simple, but carries enormous weight. This money is not yours to keep. This money is yours to give. In some families, this is a humble giving envelope, a small monthly allocation from the family budget specifically designated for charitable giving. The child does not get to spend it on anything for themselves. Their only decision is where it goes. In more affluent old money households, this tradition evolves into something far more sophisticated. The child is made a named advisor, or even an honorary director, of the family's charitable foundation. Some families establish a donor-advised fund in the child's name. Some actually register small, family charitable entities with the child's name attached. These children are attending meetings. They're sitting across from charity directors and nonprofit executives. They're looking at reports about how money was spent, what impact it created, and what the plan is for next year. Now, your first reaction might be, what does a 7-year-old know about running a charity? And that is exactly the right question, because the answer is the whole point. The child isn't expected to know. The child is expected to learn. And the environment in which they learn it, the actual boardroom, the real ledger, the genuine responsibility, is the lesson itself. You don't learn to swim by reading a book about swimming. Old money families understood this long before modern education theory gave it a name. Now let's pull back the curtain further, because the structures behind these childhood charity traditions are where things get genuinely fascinating. Old money families use several legal and financial vehicles for this. Let me break them down. The family foundation. A private family foundation is a non-profit legal entity funded by a single family. Contributions are tax-deductible. The family has full control over how the money is distributed to qualifying charitable organizations. And here's what most people don't realize. The foundation can legally compensate family members for legitimate work managing it. Some of the most powerful foundations in history started as family vehicles. The Rockefeller Foundation, founded in 1913. The Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Corporation. These were not acts of pure altruism. They were strategic architecture. They preserved wealth, built influence, and created institutions that carry the family name and the family's power across generations. When an old money child is introduced to the family foundation early, they don't just learn about charity. They learn about governance. They learn that money has structure, that capital can be organized, directed, and compounded in ways that go far beyond a savings account. The donor-advised fund, for families who want the strategic benefits of philanthropy without the administrative overhead of a full foundation, the donor-advised fund, or DAF, is the tool of choice. Think of a DAF as a charitable savings account. You make a contribution, you receive an immediate tax deduction, and then you have full flexibility to recommend grants to qualifying charities over time, on your schedule. Fidelity Charitable, Schwab Charitable, Vanguard Charitable, all of these offer DAFs accessible to everyday families. The minimum contribution to open one is typically just $5,000. Old money families put children at the center of DAF decisions from a young age. We have $3,000 in our giving fund this year. Where do you want it to go? That conversation, repeated year after year, builds something in a child's brain that no classroom ever could. The giving allowance. Not every old money family uses a formal legal structure. Many simply codify generosity through what they call a giving allowance. A percentage of the child's monthly allowance, often 10%, is designated exclusively for charitable giving. The child has no choice about whether to give. They only have a choice about where. This is a subtle distinction with massive implications. It trains the child to experience generosity not as something optional, not as something you do when you feel moved, but as a default, a built-in feature of being a person with resources. Wealth becomes synonymous with responsibility. That rewiring, that's priceless. Now here is the layer that almost nobody talks about, because when people discuss old money charity traditions, they usually frame it as, "Isn't it beautiful that wealthy families teach their children to give?" And yes, it is beautiful, but beauty is not the point. The point is power. And when you understand exactly what these children are learning, you realize this tradition is one of the most efficient education systems ever designed. Lesson 1. Wealth is a tool, not a trophy. The fundamental mindset difference between old money and new money is this. Old money sees wealth as a tool. New money sees wealth as a trophy. Trophies sit on shelves. Tools build things. A child who grows up directing charitable dollars, watching what money can accomplish when deployed with intention, grows into an adult who approaches every financial decision differently. They don't ask, "How much can I get?" They ask, "What can this accomplish?" That cognitive shift is worth more than any inheritance. Lesson 2. Social capital is the real currency. Here is something almost never discussed. When a child makes a significant charitable contribution, even a small one, they enter a relationship. The charity director knows their name. The board members know the family. Invitations arrive for galas, dinners, and events attended by other high net worth individuals. By the time an old money child is a teenager, they possess a network that most adults spend their entire careers desperately trying to build. This is not an accident. Old money families understand, viscerally, that real wealth is not stored in banks. It is stored in relationships. And charity is one of the most elegant relationship-building tools ever invented because it wraps access and influence inside the socially acceptable language of virtue. Nobody questions why a Rockefeller is at a hospital gala. That access is engineered from childhood. Lesson 3. Tax intelligence, the secret nobody talks about this one, is the most strategically important, and it is almost never mentioned in public. Old money children grow up with an intuitive understanding of how the tax system actually works, not from a textbook at 35, but from dinner table conversations at 8. They watch their parents make charitable contributions and receive tax deductions. They watch money enter a donor-advised fund and grow tax-free until it's distributed. They hear, casually, as background noise, conversations about estate planning, gift tax exclusions, charitable remainder trusts, and foundation governance. By the time they're adults, they don't need a crash course in wealth management. They've been absorbing it for 20 years. Their understanding of how to legally, ethically reduce tax burden while simultaneously building social capital is instinctive. That is old money's most fiercely protected competitive advantage. Lesson 4. Governance and critical thinking. Every time a child sits across from a charity director and asks, "How do you measure your impact? How do you know the money is being used well?" they are practicing governance. They are learning to evaluate competing priorities. They are developing the habit of asking hard questions before deploying capital. They are building the decision-making muscles that future board members, executives, and wealth stewards need. And they are building these muscles before they can legally drive. Here's the most important thing I want to leave you with today. This tradition is not behind a locked gate. You don't need a family crest or a Swiss bank account to start implementing these principles with your own children. You just have to start. Step 1. The giving envelope. Take 10% of your child's allowance and designate it as giving money. It cannot be spent on anything personal. Once a month, sit down together and decide where it goes. Make it a ritual, not a chore. Let the child lead the conversation. Ask them, who needs help right now? What cause do you care about? Step 2. Open a donor-advised fund. If you have $5,000 to $10,000 available, consider opening a DAF through Fidelity Charitable or Schwab Charitable. Involve your child in every grant decision. Let them feel the real weight of directing actual dollars to causes that matter to them. The lessons they absorb will compound for decades. Step 3. Close the loop. Visit the organizations. Old money children don't just write checks and move on. They are taken to the soup kitchens, the hospitals, the community centers their family supports. They see the impact up close. This creates a feedback loop. Generosity produces tangible, visible results, which deepens commitment to generosity. Make sure your child can see and feel where the money lands. Step 4. Put money on the dinner table. Old money children are financially literate because their parents treat money as a normal conversation topic, not something shameful or taboo. Start having honest, age-appropriate conversations about income, taxes, and giving. Explain why charitable deductions exist. Talk about what a foundation does. Normalize financial literacy the way old money families have for generations. Step 5. Build the network through service. Encourage your child to attend charity events, volunteer, get involved in community organizations. The relationships built in the context of shared purpose are among the most durable they will ever form. And unlike school friendships or workplace acquaintances, service-based connections carry a depth of trust that is extraordinarily rare. Old money families have been running this playbook for over a century, and the charity tradition is not the footnote. It's one of the foundations. Because here is the truth they've always known, and that most of the world has never been told. Generational wealth is not primarily built in stock markets or real estate portfolios. It is built in the culture of a family, in the habits, values, and instincts passed from parent to child, year after year, before the child even understands what they're learning. The families who have held onto wealth across 5 and 6 generations didn't get lucky. They got intentional. And the beautiful thing, the thing I hope you take away from this video today, is that intentionality is not inherited. It is chosen. If this opened your eyes to how old money really thinks, subscribe, because we are going deep into these traditions every single week. And drop a comment below. Would you start a giving tradition with your kids? I genuinely want to know. I'll see you in the next one.